What excites me most is going to be a weird answer: the unknown. There's opportunity embroiled in the unknown. The unknown is a gift because it's not shaped. It's a manifestation of how you show up and how you contribute, and there's no boundaries to that. I love things that don't have boundaries.
Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, the podcast where we explore the people, the stories, the relationships helping shape business and leadership today. We're joined by Erick Stewart, someone I first met through Edward Lowe Foundation, a community built around supporting entrepreneurs, leaders, and meaningful connections. Today's conversation is all about leadership, growth, relationships, and the lessons we learn along the way, both in business and in life. Erick, welcome to Symplicity Conversations. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm glad to be here too.
This is going to be a great conversation. So here at Symplicity Communications, we don't just have conversation with great guests like Erick. We design technology solutions that power growth, smart, scalable, and future ready. We don't just connect businesses, we really elevate them. Symplicity Communications, it's technology with purpose, but people at the center. Before we get into our conversation today, let's share our Symplicity insight of the day. This is our famous quote that really applies to the conversation. And today, Doug chose a quote by Howard Schultz: "Success is best when it's shared." And Erick, that just speaks volumes after me just seeing you at the SBAM annual meeting. And I just see you walking around just being a positive inspiration. Not only were you a former chair of the SBAM board, but just still showing up, still contributing, still going around and just being an inspiration to other entrepreneurs. And it's just, when I think about that quote, "Success is best when it's shared," it just really epitomizes what you do when you're at these meetings and just really just being an inspiration to people. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's an outside observation. Uh, and I didn't know I was being watched. I was just being me. And
Always.
I have a policy of, you know me long enough to know my policy of presence. And if my presence helps someone be successful, that's great. It's pretty much just me being me, and going around trying to have that butterfly effect on other people's businesses, lives, and what have you. And that's a great environment to do that in because it's all my favorite people, entrepreneurs.
It's funny you say butterfly effect, because I was recently on one of my podcasts and I keep saying it's the ripple effect of kindness. When people observe that, it's the ripple effect. And Jennifer corrected me. She said, "Catherine, I hear you say the ripple effect, but I think it's the Ripley effect."
Yes.
And it was so like, whoa, it was one of those moments. And I can really resonate because we do never know somebody's looking at us or somebody's watching. But I think that that's one of the things that I've realized in having connections. It's about the community, no matter what that community is. It can start at the Edward Lowe as a community and where I met you, but it bleeds over into SBAM and other associations and just the general community. And so I think it's really important to make sure that personally or professionally that you uphold certain values that come through, because you never know who's watching. You never know what they're going to take from it. And you want them to take the good stuff, because we all have weaknesses. We all have, maybe not the best habits, but man, you want the good ones to come through. And that is one thing that I've noticed about you, no matter where, whether it's a retreat that you're helping facilitate. You do things that are impactful.
Yeah. You know what? I appreciate that. And I'll add to that. I approach life like someone's always watching. And that the little things that you do, verbal and nonverbal, can change the trajectory of someone's life. You never know what people are going through. You never know what people are at. You never know how they show up. Half the time we show up with all our stuff packed in and not dealt with and things of that nature. And if you can give somebody a 30-second respite from that, that may change the trajectory of their life. It's not so much about you know, showing up, being seen or what have you. It's about energy. And energy doesn't care what room you're in. Energy reacts with other energy. So you're an energetic person. Those of you that know Catherine that have probably watched this podcast and things of that nature. Every time I'm in the room with you, Catherine, it's this ball of energy that I secretly don't know what to do with because I don't know what's gonna happen,
Yep.
you know? And the cool
Neither.
thing is I have to make sure that my energy is positive and check, present, paying attention, and is focused on what's around me versus what's in me. And that's the what's in me is going to come out when I'm focused on that positive energy. And there's when you have that spark. Bam. And that can go either a good way or a poor way. Our relationships work. And that's what we're called to do. So, it happens all the time, whether we like it or not. I'd much rather be on the positive end of what the universe has in our gifts and our talents and what have you. But it's fun.
It really is, and that's why, when I get involved in organizations, I and I try to talk to people about this when I'm mentoring or talking to anybody about being involved in different organizations. I said, don't have any expectations going into it because it doesn't matter what topic is being talked about. It doesn't matter. You're going to meet new people, and when you're going to learn something, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to meet a connection that might not help you that day. Maybe it might not help you the next year, but at some point you're going to go, you can travel back and go, oh, this came out here. I just recently told you a story. You were a guest speaker in the Women's Entrepreneurial Fellowship through SBM. And this is a group of, a dozen ladies that are running all different types of businesses. So there's so many things that we deal with that are the same, but there's also a lot of side things that happen because like one person runs a daycare center and I can't even imagine the things that she does and deals with. Holy cannoli. But, I think that it's it's really important when you walked in and it was just like, Eric speaking today. I just had this like thing that came over and I knew like, cool, like we're gonna take away some things. And I remember saying to you, because this hit me, during that, I'm like, man alive, Eric doesn't know that he, about a year and a half ago, did something in a retreat at the Edward Lowe Foundation that made me stop. Number one, I burst into tears because it just hit me so hard. But you were talking about forgiveness. We were sharing things, and you said about forgiveness and that you need to forgive yourself. And it hit me really hard because I was knee deep in stuff that I was feeling a lot of shame for, a lot of frustration. And why didn't I see this coming? These people taking advantage of me. Why didn't, like, I should be smarter than that. And I went, wow, I really need to forgive myself because it's not so much that I need to see things sooner or act on them sooner, but it's more about I made the best decision possible with the information I had. And, here we are a year and a half later. And I think about that when I see you going, wow, I want to make sure to tell him how impactful that was because I've actually talked to other people, especially younger people, about making sure that they can tune into yourself and go, those moments that I need to kind of let that go because for whatever reason I didn't see things earlier. And so, man, it's incredible this community. I'll put it on community because you're really in several groups. You were in SBM, you're in Edward Lowe, but now were a speaker in Women's Entrepreneurial Fellowship, and it's like you're just showing up,
Yeah,
and you're in my community now.
yeah. I like to. My friends like to say I'm everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. because you haven't even gotten into my, my private consulting pieces, plus my
Yeah.
municipal work, plus my nonprofit work. I'd like to take that entrepreneurial spirit wherever I go.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
right, but I want to key in on something I appreciate your kind words in terms of talking about our interaction and what have you. And the type of work that I do with entrepreneurs is dealing with the entrepreneur. Most consultants, and I have a boutique consultant firm, and as you know, I'm coming out of 23 years of being a reform manufacturer and process control in
I
all
love
different
that.
types of industries, but really taking a step back and saying, I can't focus on your bottom line if I don't focus on you and understanding where you are. And you came, and you brought it up. You came into that space and you were going through it, and you can call it you typically, when you hear me say universe, you can, that's synonymous with God or whatever your faith is. It's the
Uh-huh.
spiritual piece, right? And there are some basic universal principles that guide us, and all of those things you were dealing with were balls of energy that were just driving you crazy. But guess what? It was preparing you for what was next. And when you're in it, you can't see it, right? Because the universe doesn't make mistakes. So you fast forward to today, the Catherine of today, and I've seen the transformation. The Catherine of today is much different than that moment. And at the
Yeah.
moment you had the hardest thing we can do is have true forgiveness for others and ourselves, in my opinion. And the moment that release happened for you, you were on this ride. And we take for granted the contracts that come, the new relationships that happen, the opportunities that are
Yep.
on the horizon. You may never have been present to receive any of that. It might have passed you by because of that quagmire of what you thought was such a big thing. And now, don't get me wrong, it was important at the time, because when the BS happens, it's like, man, why is this all happening at once?
Exactly.
But when it's over with, you're like, man, that was man, I made it past that. And it makes you stronger and what have you. But the basis is Catherine can lift herself up through that and lift others up at the same time, because you didn't walk that journey by yourself. A whole
Uh-uh.
bunch of us heard your story and
Yeah.
several times, and
Yeah.
what have you. But we all could garner learning from it. And that's what
You
this is
know,
all about.
yes, totally. And I've had a number of people put it down to this, that the windshield is a lot bigger than the rear view mirror. And this too shall pass, right? We all hear that. Like, when I think about it now, being a year and a half later, um, a year later, when the situation resolved, um, it's my life is just in so many ways so much better, and you can't see it when you're in it. So I would say, when you're in something, to the listeners that are going through something, because life is a series of tragic events, and I'm an optimistic person, so I try to look at the silver lining in everything, and that this is part of my journey, and I had to go through that to get to where I am now. Just like next year, I'll have to go through whatever I went through this year to get to that point. Uh, and you don't do it alone. It takes a village. And I've used, as we get into your amazing background, we met at Edward Lowe, and that experience for me has been life changing. In fact, I just talked to somebody about, she said, hey, is it worth trying to get involved in Edward Lowe? And I said, well, uh yes, it's worth anything you need to do. If you get an invitation to go, you drop everything, quit making excuses, and you go. Because I've been involved since 2018, and I can't imagine doing business without the Edward Lowe Foundation. Not not because they're there to help second stagers, but because of all the people and all the village that I've experienced. And I'm curious of what your feelings are. Like, why do you think communities like that matter for entrepreneurs and leaders?
Yeah, yeah, you get the Edward Lowe Foundation is a magical place. And
Magical.
and I'll say this, it's important for leaders, because we don't have too many places we have as outlets that we can share. We
Safe.
often think, I mean, when you were going through what you're going through, you thought it was just you. and you sat in the room with some other folks that had businesses, and those are the things we have in common, although we have different backgrounds, what have you, that entrepreneurial spirit links us all as a family. And in that family setting, you were able to get the support you needed that it would have been very difficult to get that anywhere else in that moment at that time. And, all you had to do to receive that was show up.
Mhm.
And you showed up, you were receptive. And I've seen that magic happen many times, and some powerful things have come out, emotional and
Mhm.
all of the things and what have you. Keep in mind, we're not talking about balance sheets and income statements. Okay, we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
upstream in terms of improving our businesses through improving ourselves. And
Mhm.
so that's, like I said, that's part of what I focus on when I enter the room, any room, especially at the Edward Lowe Foundation, to help facilitate that magic that Mr. Lowe had this concept of, entrepreneurs need an outlet of pondering, and they need each other,
Mhm.
and. And so,
Exactly.
if I would say Edward Lowe is that place you can't afford not to be as an entrepreneur. And if they ask you, if they find a spot, if any entrance is a good entrance, and they have several,
I
so
to I
it's great.
totally agree. I
And,
totally
and
agree,
look,
and go
before you
ahead.
go, let me say something. I love that analogy of the windshield versus the rearview mirror. But you know what often we do, and we people traffic in this. They will drive the car full speed, turn the car around, put the car in reverse, and try and drive backwards through looking for the rearview mirror. That's how comfortable sometimes we get with that chaos that enters our life. And you need other folks around you that are able to call you on your stuff and say, you know what? You need to stop the car and get out. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
sometimes it takes getting into a new car, but this is how we can safely operate our lives, and I can be a good co-pilot for you. And allowing that level of support
Uh-huh.
is what the foundation and other people who are balanced and have been through it. I've been through it way before you. So the things that I hear, I'm like, oh man, I got something for that.
Yeah.
You don't have to struggle like I did. And I still to this day, I'm like, man, I can't believe one, I'm still alive after being through all of that. And two, I still have something to share and people see value in it.
Oh, huge value. And let's talk about your story. Let's get into it. Walk us through your career journey and what led you to where you are today, having your boutique consulting firm.
Mhm. So, I'll tell you the short version. There's a catalyst for every entrepreneur. There's that thing that, and if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, yeah, there's something that made me go. There's a defining moment, a crazy moment. It doesn't have to make sense or anything like that. And for me, it started with somebody told me that I couldn't do something, and it offended me personally, professionally, and what have you. And it made me leave a good corporate job and write a business plan. And at that time, I was in my mid 20s. And at the time, I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. I know I make this look young, but at the end of the day, at that point in people's lives, a 20 something didn't start a business. That was for a 50 something that had built a nest egg and what have you. It's a little different now, right? But I left a good paying job, wrote a business plan, and as far as I thought through it, I said, well, in 3 or 4 years, I'll be 30 and I'll go get another job if this doesn't work out. That's it. And started this journey of being in manufacturing and finding a niche that didn't exist and growing a business from there's more technology on your cell phone today than I had when I started the business. And there weren't people around me to say, hey, this is how you need to behave, this is what's going to happen, and what have you. And that was the year 1999 or 2000. So somebody said for the next 23 years, from 2000 to 2022, 2023, you're going to own a business and try and grow it to $50 million and employ 140 plus people. Um, and they give you insight of economic downturns, tsunamis, wars. You'd be like, that's out of control, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I look back on that, going, how did you survive all of that? Profitable, broke. Oh my goodness, all the things, and what keeps me focused going forward, because I didn't know there was going to be this transition in my life, and where I was going to shed all of those pieces and say, this is what I'm passionate about. I'm going to follow my passion no matter. And that was a life-changing event for me. And now I'm focused on, like I said, a boutique consulting firm. Don't look. You can go Google Erick Stewart, and I'm proud of all my Google reviews. And you see all this manufacturing stuff, but what you're not going to see is, you're not going to see this logoed up big website going, "Hey, use me as a consultant." Don't get me wrong, I like money, but at the end of the day, I have two factors that I deal with clients with. Um, One is, you got to be cool to work with. Okay. I got to be able to talk to you. We got to be able to communicate. And two, you got to have money. Okay. I got to build a budget around what we're doing. Right. If those two things aren't simple things, aren't in concert, we don't have room for an intake meeting to solve your issues or what have you. And you have to be ready, both mentally and monetarily, to make an investment in your business and yourself, to be able to get up the road, even if you can't see the road. And so that's what makes, Lagniappe is the name of my organization. It's a French word. It's Creole. My family's from Louisiana, and means something extra or a bonus. And I hope that's what you get when you deal with me every single time, because of the presence that I bring. And so everything from organizational development to project management to family owned business, is one of my lanes this year. I got clients that revolve around economic development and, sales growth and what have you. It doesn't really matter what the thing is. We started the same place with, you know, who is Catherine,
Yeah.
and where's Catherine going? That other stuff, that other tactical stuff, typically works itself out, right? You wouldn't be in business 5 minutes if you didn't have that spirit within you, right?
Right. Right.
So, it's fun to make that journey. It's fun to enter a room with someone that's like, "Show me how we get there," and I'm like, I don't know how we get there, but we're gonna figure it out." And then we end up hitting this stride, and you felt it in the room, when
Yeah.
we hit that stride, and it becomes really fun.
It
So,
it
you know,
does. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but there's two ladies that had in my industry that have an agency like mine, from New Orleans, and their business is called Lagniappe. They spelled it not the French way, just so that people could pronounce their their business name. But I saw when I first learned about your business name, I'm like, oh, I know what Lagniappe is, just because
yes,
of
yeah.
amazing,
The
handshake.
cool thing, everything in Louisiana is lagniappe. There's a million businesses and what have you. I like it, because, people struggle in saying it. I was at a function, last week, and I was on a panel, and I sit on these panels, and I'm like, "Oh, here it comes. He's gonna try and pronounce it. Let's see." And, if you've never been exposed to it, it's a tricky word. And I like it when people stumble over it and they struggle and they really try, and I try and help them through that, because you're gonna remember that energy exchange, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I get to tell the story of where it came from, like I did, very quickly. It's French Creole. My grandparents were French Creole, and we're from Louisiana. And then then we get on that journey of talking about that story, what it means, how we manifest that in a business and what have you, and it just makes it unique and pop. ABC company, and ABC consulting company, or Stewart Consulting. You're gonna leave there and go, okay, yeah, that's what that guy does. But you're gonna remember that you jacked up that name several times, and I corrected you in a fun way, and away
Yeah.
we. So
I agree. We do that with Symplicity Communications because it's with a Y, and
yes,
inevitably people are like, "What is the name?" Yeah, it's simplicity. We just make things easier, right? So you've built your career around relationships. I mean, you've had an incredible manufacturing company for 23 years, a lot of business growth in challenging times. Manufacturing in Michigan, working with automotive, there's been some challenging years in there. The leadership that's been required. I've heard some of your stories and love some of your stories, but what has been the biggest lessons you've learned about working with people over the years?
Yeah, it's God, let me back up because thank you for those kind words. And just like just like in a woman-owned business, you got to layer that part on top of that.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's standard stuff, right? I
Yep.
read a book and say, "Hey, we went through all of this economic downturns and up and down, and whatever's happening in the external market, the mistakes that I've made internally, and what have you." But at the end of the day, there's this layer of being a business of color
Mhm.
in this global economy that isn't always so kind to businesses of color. Okay. And so sometimes as a business of color, as an entrepreneur, you feel like it's just me, but then I layer this other component to it, and it's like I'm ice skating uphill. And it's not always in your face. Sometimes it's overt and what have you. And you have to overcome that and say, you know what? My my quality and my who I am and my business supersedes all that BS. But I need to be aware of it because I can't do anything about it, right? And away we go. So, one of my biggest lessons that I've learned along the way is control what you can control, and continue to be that best, and be sure about I am. It's not hubris to say this is what we're good at, and I'm telling you we're good at it, and here's my value, and I understand my value, and those people that don't see my value can kick rocks. That's a hard thing to do because you got to eat, right? And what have you. But I mean, hell, Catherine, I could I could put myself out of business. I don't need your help. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yes, I
I would
do.
much rather deal with people that are, like I said, good partners in life, good partners in business, because when everybody wants a good quote and everybody wants to save money on the front end. But if I don't have that relationship with you, when something inevitably bad happens, we're not going to be able to work together because we haven't started a relationship built on trust. We haven't started a relationship built. We weren't honest with each other, you know? And so what happens when it gets hot? You start to retreat, you fight amongst yourselves, and then bam, you end up in some kind of weird lawsuit and things of that nature. I'd rather keep my circle small and make sure that I have partners that are saying, just like in any relationship, it works the same in business as it does in romance. There's two types of people. When you look up and some tragedy has happened or we're broke, you get one answer. What are you going to do? Or what are we going to do? I'm in the what are we going to do category. The what are you going to do person can keep it moving, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of cool. It's very simple. And like I said, the universe doesn't make mistakes, and opportunities come and opportunities go, but there's always a lesson in every single one. And sharing those lessons sometimes in a group setting or on a one-on-one setting and what have you, and watching the growth in people's companies is kind of awe-inspiring.
Well, it's cool that you took that as your next step after, a very successful manufacturing business where things, I mean, you've got to go down to cost per piece and labor costs and in putting stuff out the door. I mean, it's very process heavy. And when the process is broken, it affects all pieces. Whereas consulting companies, you can be particular. You can say, does this relationship fit? Am I going to make a difference? Am I going to add value? And it's funny because a couple of years ago, I said, geez, I want to get to the point where I'm like that doctor's office that's not accepting new patients, but once in a while we'll go, oh, you're a friend of so yeah, I'll let you in. I want to be that particular. And you've said that from the beginning of me meeting you. You've said I want to work with cool people and I want them to have money. And then, and now we can talk because number one, all you're saying is you want people that value your contributions. You're going to change their business in some positive way. Otherwise, you'll tap out. Like, you're not going to take something on that you don't see that you can add value to. And I think that it's hard working with consultants to know exactly, okay, what am I going to get? What are the deliverables? How much is it going to cost? And what's that impact? Is it going to help me sell more green beans? Is what I like to say. Is it going to help me deliver my products better? And some consultants that you work with, I've worked with some consultants in the past where you blow through $10,000 like without even getting a fraction of what they thought they would be doing. So it's super important to just understand what does that relationship look like. But I think because you kind of set that stage for, I'm being particular about who I'm going to work with because being cool is subjective.
100%. And the way that I operate, I've had to let clients go after
Yeah.
a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those consultants that show up and I'm doing all the work for you. You're going to do the work.
Right. As you
I
do.
don't offer advice. That's one of our Edward Lowe principles, and it's one of my
Yeah.
principles in my business. I don't offer advice. I set up the scenario based on what you need to do, and based on my experience, you have to do the rest because that's how you facilitate the learning. That's how you facilitate the next time you have this barrier in front of you, you know what to do versus I need to call Eric and invest another $15,000. You know what I'm saying? And getting in here to help me work through this. That's not success to me. Getting back to your original quote, success is me learning that thing, applying that thing, and sharing it with the universe so that somebody else doesn't have to learn that thing the same way that I. And once you apply that and you turn that switch on, things become easier. But it's it's hard to apply that. And I encourage my clients to do that. So if you get anything out of working with me, you're going to build that density to where you don't necessarily need me all the time. Now,
Mhm.
you want me because there's going to be something else over the horizon, but you're not dealing with the same thing over and over again.
I love for listeners to be thinking through these conversations to go, okay, I'm maybe they're working for a company and they don't own a business and they can't hire an Eric, but you can take some of the context that we're talking about and apply it to yourself to say, who do I have in my circle or people that I look up to that I can, kind of pull that in. And I think the important thing is to always be learning, always be thinking about you are who you associate with and really be thinking and aware of who am I associating with and are they adding value to my life. So whether it's us talking about you being a consultant adding huge value to help these small businesses grow or somebody listening this to go, well, how could I find an Eric? Think about mentors. Think about sometimes a mentor relationship doesn't cost you money, but maybe you got to take them to lunch or buy them a coffee. But think about that. Eric is adding value. So you want to be thinking about that. And I think that as we think about this, Eric, you've got to be constantly evolving you and your business and what value you're adding. So let's talk a little bit about resilience in those entrepreneurial circles. What is that? What does resiliency mean to you personally, and for some of your clients that you kind of have to work through with them?
Gosh, resilience is it, it over the past 5 years, it's become almost this cliche word we use with overcoming and so on and so forth. But for me, and I use it metaphorically, the the entrepreneur often gets gut punched, and you're on the floor in the fetal position. And resiliency is dealing with that pain in that moment, being able to take an inventory of I'm going to be okay, but it's painful, and getting up and doing that thing you need to do, even in the light of I don't know what that thing I need to do is. Okay. And that's the craziness about being, I was in a group and everyone had some type of issue. And I said, look, being an entrepreneur sucks. That's the basis of it. Okay. And you know that, but then when it's good, you can't stop doing what you're doing. You get where I'm coming from. And you have resiliency in that to say, even though bad things are going to happen here, um, there, there's a positive effect to what's happening. You have, you have people under your employ, you
Yeah.
have products to make that you have to make sure are quality products. You're touching humanity in such a way um, that a big corporation cannot. And so, therefore, you have more impact on the world than what you would perceive as a monster corporation doing all these things in the world. But those things can't happen without the entrepreneur and what we do, especially second stage businesses.
And you never know. You can be the best of planners and plan your day, but things still come up and derail and roadblocks. And that's what I always say. I'm to my team. My job is to remove roadblocks. What do you need to be successful? Let me remove the roadblocks. But there's so much complication that happens, miscommunication, just things that come up in just any day, everyday business. And I think sometimes, you know, people overcomplicate their business, um, or even in their personal lives. It should be easier. I mean, that's why I named the company Symplicity, right? Is I just saw that, man, this technology stuff, it's got to be easier to deliver and use. Businesses move so fast today, with technology, communications, or even expectations. How do you stay grounded and focused through all of that change, or when you're helping your clients thinking about that change?
We go back to resiliency. I'm not saying I don't have my freak out moments too, and what have you, but it is it's a little bit of resiliency, but really it's faith. Having faith in knowing that in this moment you have the right words for the right person that gets them through what they're dealing with, even if I don't know that it's a thing. The story you told earlier, I mean, in that moment, I'm like, yeah, yeah, we had a powerful moment together, but I had no idea the impact it would have on your life when we left that room. And there's the power in leading with your passion, adding value to other human beings around you in a substantive way, and removing all the BS that becomes this noise uh, for you, the human being, before you are the entrepreneur. Um, I love facilitating that piece. Now, don't get me wrong. There's fear for me in that. Quiet is kept secret. When I come back into the room and Catherine gives her, hey, this is what happened since the last time I saw you. That's my most nervous moment because I'm like, man, I know we had a discussion last time and Catherine saying, hey, guess what? I did what you said and and what? Please you know? And so, the cool thing is having faith enough in yourself, your abilities, and what the universal gifts have given you to say, Catherine's gonna be all right. And, you play a role in making sure that happens.
I also think that because there's another thing that shows up when Eric does, and that's authenticity. Like you're Eric, no matter whether I see you at Edward Lowe or at the SBAM meetings, you just genuine, authentic. And because you are that way, the things that you kind of run through you, um, is genuine. You're there to help. You're there to try to help when an entrepreneur is struggling. Like through the retreat, sometimes we are talking about challenges, and we don't want to give advice to each other. We want to give experiences. This, in my experience, this is what I experienced when I let my last person go or whatever. So I think because you do that and you show up like that, that's been my experience as well. Is if you're a giver, you will receive. That's just natural. Um, so many people, it's always about them. It's always about what's in it for me. It goes back to the I or the we conversation, right? Try to be somebody that gives for the sake of giving, not for an expectation. Because if you do, then all aspects of what you're doing will help you to have that authentic nature come through so that if you do share something that you don't know is going to be impactful, it's probably going to be very positive because that's how you're choosing to drop things and share your experiences, good, bad, or ugly. Because, sometimes, the best thing is for me to share a fail forward moment and go, this is what I failed at, and if I can have another entrepreneur shrink that time frame or avoid that attorney, bill because there's so many things that happen. Ridiculous amount of monies we spend on attorneys, like employment attorneys and stuff. If I can help another entrepreneur avoid some of that, then it's worth what I went through because I kind of look at it like, well, um, it's the worst is when you stay silent about things because then nobody's going to learn from that. And most importantly, you're not going to learn all those lessons. And I find actually being vulnerable. And I feel like going to the retreats at Edward Lowe, that really put me on my path of being much more vulnerable. And I'm not just talking about being in business because I always go back to, Tom Hanks. There's no crying in baseball. Well, there's crying in frickin' business because there's some times where it's just too much. It's just, too much. You've got employees that betray you. You've got, clients that don't choose you. You've got things that happen that you're like, life's not fair. But you know what? We learned long ago, life isn't fair. And it's how we need to show up. And so I love, gosh, I think that all the little pieces and parts, doesn't it always come back to your self evaluation and how you show up and what you can contribute and what you can give? And then the magic and when it circles back because somebody else tossed something out similar and it just like really sat with you right in the moment that you really needed it. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what's cool.
Yeah. Well, it now we've come full circle. So things
Mhm.
like fairness or good and bad, those are social constructs as far as I'm concerned. Um, there's the universal principle of we are sharing energy with humanity and what have you, and how you show up for humanity means the difference in terms of your impact supersedes all of that. Um, and so I'm not worried about what Catherine's doing necessarily in conflict with how Eric feels. I can only control Eric's contribution, and Catherine's accountable and has to atone for her contribution. Now, if Catherine chooses a path, and this goes for employee and employer relationships. I can't control how they show up. I can control the environment in which they show up in and add the best foot forward. Now I got to find people who are going to flourish in that environment, and it's my intrinsic responsibility to match those things up and make sure they leave in a better condition than which they showed up. Um, that is taking care of human beings around you. And so, you can call it the 7 habits or whatever. You can read whatever, how many books you want. But at the end of the day, the premise behind all of those books I've read is if you're contributing to humanity in a positive way, positive things are going to happen. Hence, the more the, the more contributions you make, the bigger the reward is, and the reward doesn't always come in that form that you think it's going to come, but
Yeah,
it does come. So,
I agree. When you think about the future, Eric, personally or professionally, what excites you most right now?
what excites me most is going to be a weird answer: the unknown. There's opportunity embroiled in the unknown. The unknown is a gift, and because it's not shaped, it's it is it's a manifestation of how you show up and how you contribute, and there's no boundaries to that. I love things that don't have boundaries. That's why I love giving people autonomy. Come on in. You're an expert at what you do. I'm not here to micromanage you or babysit what I
Right.
ask you to do. Just do it. And
Right.
we're going to find out either it's going to hockey stick us or we're going to be stagnant or we're going to go, we're going to end up in the ditch. Um, all of those are three different directions where there's lessons in that, right? And so, what lesson can I impart that I'm supposed to learn by that interaction? And how can I apply that to humanity later is how I roll.
So cool. If you could go back and give younger Eric, that 20 some kid, a piece of advice, what would it be?
I love this question. That younger Eric was a crazy person. So, I don't even know if I'd talk to me if this, no one. Look, that question is really a question of where you are and the way you garner wisdom, and wisdom is different than knowledge, right? I can read. I've met a whole bunch of doctoral idiots, you know what I'm saying, that aren't contributing in the way that the universe asked them to contribute. Okay. So, paperwork aside, and all of those things, you want to make sure that you are garnering wisdom, and wisdom comes from learning from those who came before you, accepting the harsh honesty that they're going to give you, and applying that to a generation that's following you where it's important, even if you don't get rewarded for that. Those are things that are because a younger me couldn't understand those universal principles. Think about it, Catherine. When we were all 20, we thought we were invincible.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when we became 30, you hoped that you had a little bit of money, but you still had that little bit of invincibility, but you were kind of ignorant, you know? And then you became 40 and you're like, okay, I might have a family. I might have different responsibilities. And I can see there's this thing that I'm supposed to be doing. That's kind of that decade where that's honed in my opinion, right? And then you get in your 50s, if you still have your health and things of that nature, you're gliding, right? And you're gliding into what I think is a sweet spot of life if you have your family, your health, and what have you, is the 60, 70s is off the chain. And let me tell you something. I've met my parents are aging seniors and they have more fun and got more spunk than I'm like, where's what? And where sickness and other fourth quarter variables would scare us don't matter because they've lived that rich part of their lives. And that comes from wisdom, not from things that happen. I mean, those are little things that happen are little signposts along the way. But that wisdom is what guides you being kind of solvent in your spirit. And those are the best people. And keep in mind, I said all those things that had nothing to do with money.
Right.
um, I've seen a whole bunch I've been on people's yachts where they are horribly miserable. I'm like, I gotta get off your boat, you know? And none of that matters. They would trade all of that for 5 minutes of your solitude. And I'm going home going, man, should I spend all that money? I mean, it's all it's all relational and what have you. And it's that energy exchange between you and other human beings that adds value.
It's so important for people to really stop and think, what is success? A lot of people talk about measuring success. Well, what does success mean? Is it happiness? Is it joy versus a certain title or a certain paycheck? I think don't get me wrong, money gives you options, right? Doesn't necessarily make you happy, but it doesn't suck to make it so that you can do things that do make you happy. But that's different for everyone. So it's a personal choice of what success means. And it's a constant reevaluation and measuring of what's important. And I love when I think about your career journey. Number one, it's so important for um, me struggling with women in business because most of the technology firms, there's a lot of men talking up in the panels, and we need more diverse people up on that. on those panels, and you running a business of color and you have struggles running a business, just walking through the door. I always say my reputation walks through the door before me. And so we have to overcome some of those things. And what's most important is that young kids need to see people like you and I so that that look like us go, if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. Because sometimes that's the first thing that they need to change their trajectory. But it's still up to them to do the work. We can't
Hmm.
do it for them.
Hmm.
If you want to show up, I mean, you want to create a business like you did, you had a whole lot of uh, ambition and work and determination and courage and fear. So many things when I think about how I started my business 20 years ago and the things that I go through. Um, it's not easy. If you want to start a business, start it, but just know that you're going to have some moments where you're going to be scared to death and you don't know how you're going to make it and you've got decisions that are too big. And it's okay because maybe you'll find a consultant that can help you navigate. Maybe you'll find a board of directors that can help you navigate. And even if you're just in the early part of your career, think about who's in your life. Because I think when it comes down to it, this conversation, Eric, is an example of not business that gets done, but the relationships that you have in your life. That's what helps you navigate.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to that, and I reflect on the fact that it was Father's Day was yesterday, and and I reflect on what you said. My one thing my dad told me early on, and my dad's been very successful in his own right, and has had an incredible journey. And he said something very simple to me. He said, You're never going to be successful. You're always succeeding." And I'm like, "Huh," and that always stuck with me. You know what I'm saying? So
I
that
get it.
yeah, that keeps you moving. And so as I've gotten older, there's this thing about passing the baton to folks and watching them run and what have you. I'm not giving anybody my baton. I'll light your torch with mine, and you can run on with your flame and what have you, but I'm not dimming my flame for for you, younger Eric, and what have. But at the end of the day, this principle of succeeding versus success has finality to it. And we as entrepreneurs, you're always got that secondary business plan roaming around
Yeah.
in you and ready to jump at any time. And that's what makes us unique. So that's I can contribute anything. That's one thing I like to do.
Well, I'm so glad we made time to have this conversation, Eric, because I love sharing some of my secrets, and you're one of my secrets, that's in my network that I just love. And for those listening, check out Eric Stewart on LinkedIn, connect in with him. We'll post his business name, Lanyap Consulting, Strategic Consulting, I think it
Yes.
is.
Yep.
Check it out. You got to be cool and you got to have money if you want to talk to him, though. But he's worth every penny.
Look, the LinkedIn part ain't gonna cost you anything, but
That's right.
I definitely like talking to people and sharing
Hmm.
my energy with people.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost you anything,
No.
but the value comes from when we align in terms of how we want to affect change in humanity through our products and
Yeah.
services. So it's good. I
It
appreciate
is.
you.
It is. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Simplicity Conversations. If today's conversation resonates with you, we encourage you to reach out, connect, invest in relationships that help you grow personally and professionally. Be sure to subscribe and share this episode. Join us next time as we continue bringing you conversations with leaders shaping the future of business and technology. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit thesimplepodcast.com for more. Thanks for listening.